2025 was a banner year for the United Arab Emirates, a year when victory seemed all but assured and the political masterminds of Abu Dhabi seemed truly unstoppable. In Sudan, the Emirates-backed Rapid Support Forces had engaged in some of the darkest acts known to mankind, and the Emirates had gotten off with hardly a slap on the wrist. In Yemen, a rebel group called the Southern Transitional Council had taken over nearly the entire country with the Emirates' help, capturing oil, thwarting Saudi Arabia, and demanding recognition as a new sovereign state. In the breakaway regions of Somaliland and Puntland, the UAE has transformed airports and seaports into the most important points in a new regional axis, and in Libya, it seemed clear just weeks ago that the Emirates were going to make something big happen, and very soon. But across the first few weeks of 2026, the true nature of Abu Dhabi's new axis was revealed for the entire world to see. Not some grand political machination, but a paper tiger, an illusion that would fall apart when faced with even the slightest resistance. The United Arab Emirates have gone from ascendant to retreating in record time, and now there's a very real chance that the UAE will be made to pay for its transgressions, some of which are deadly serious. You see, there's four little letters that really matter in geopolitics. F-A-F-O. And after years spent fucking around with international affairs across the wider region, it appears that the United Arab Emirates is about to find out. Yemen revived. On the 18th of December 2025, our team at Warfronts published an episode called Yemen is Dead, Here's What Will Replace It. At the time, a powerful breakaway Yemeni faction, the Southern Transitional Council or STC, was on the rise. With the help of Emirati armored vehicles, Emirati-supplied but Chinese-made howitzers, and Emirati advisors on the ground, the STC had thoroughly kicked the arse of Yemen's internationally recognized government, which is, in turn, backed up by Saudi Arabia. During its shock offensive, the STC had taken over most of Yemen's oil fields, the entirety of its border with Oman, and its southern coastline, and so much territory that it could now lay claim to the same area that had once been the former state of South Yemen. As the STC expelled the Republic of Yemen government from the port city of Aden, they proudly began laying out their case for Western onlookers. Recognize them as a sovereign state, give them a few weapons, and they'd get to work kicking the arse of the Houthi rebels, Al-Qaeda, and any other terrorist organization that dared step onto Yemeni soil. Make no mistake, at that moment, the STC really appeared to have done it. The Saudi-backed government, and more importantly, the powerful tribal militias that backed it up, practically had retreated from their territory as the STC advanced, refusing to fight for cities or strategic highways, and even fleeing onto Saudi soil in order to get out of their way. But the STC and the United Arab Emirates that had backed it for years would soon find out that their celebration was very premature. Now, we should mention for our regular Warfronts viewers that, yes, the plot twist that comes next has been something we've wanted to share with you, but as you probably noticed, Venezuela, Iran, and the entire Western order have all found their way into the shit. It has indeed been a busy few weeks. But while the world has been
Hello.
Hello. Hey. I just wanted to stop it for a second because what he's saying is totally confusing me.
Oh yeah.
About Saudi Arabia is about the FAFO, but I guess I need to let him talk more. But
it's not Saudi Arabia. He's talking about the United Arab Emirates.
I'm sorry, UAE, not Saudi Arabia. Yeah. Sorry.
Right. But they're all same. Everyone, all these nations are doing all that FAFO and all over the place. So it's all an interesting thing to see who's really going to find out and who's going to fuck around and get away with it.
Right. So I messed that up. Hi, Jacqueline.
Welcome. How's it going, Jacqueline?
That's what I meant to do.
Okay. So, yeah, go ahead. I think just play a couple more minutes and then, because I don't want to be riding off of other people's content too much. I actually don't even really trust his source that much. I feel I get like a NAFO vibe from him. If you guys remember NAFO, the propaganda armed Ukraine propaganda arm defending all the like on Twitter, trying to
it's giving me a bad smell test vibe.
just that weeb fronts thing. I'm not sure. I have to look into what this is. Do you know what the word weeb is? They're trying to be like really, it seems like a pretty well-financed operation that's appealing to the younger generation, probably Gen Z kind of thing. Maybe millennial. Anyway, I digress. Let's just let the intro clip finish up a little bit and give people more time to filter in a bit, and I can get to all my article sources that I prefer to.
This says weeb
thing.
This says weeb is a slang for non-Japanese person overly obsessed with Japanese culture, especially anime and manga, often to an excessive or cringeworthy degree. So that didn't check out either. I don't know. Maybe he's meaning.
So I'm thinking that it's like there. Well, no, I think that's exactly it. There's like this subculture kind of thing. You know how nerds used to be not cool, but now they're kind of like cool. I'm guessing that they're doing the same thing with this weeb culture. And I would warn people who are all into that Japanese manga stuff to, if you don't give a shit about geopolitics, you're maybe fucking around and finding out, because Japan ain't on the right side of history back then or now. And I'm sure there's all kinds of nasty nonsense in their cartoons as political propaganda that people dismiss or can't see because that's their entertainment. But there's all like that. It's a golden opportunity to get ideas into our head, to put some propaganda in our entertainment. Why do you think? You just look at Hollywood. Rest my case.
It might be going over their head while getting ingrained into their psyche. You know what I mean?
Exactly. They just think it's hard, and they dismiss as conspiracy theory someone who would say, "Hey, why don't you analyze those cartoons for political content?" So, I don't want to do work while I'm having fun.
Right.
Okay.
Good point, Jacqueline. She said, unfortunately,
exactly.
Political leaders fuck around. It's the ordinary people who have to find out.
Yeah, which is why.
Rondo, peace. I have to look that one up too. Okay, so let me go ahead and press play. I pulled it back a little bit, but not much.
Okay.
Comes next has been something we've wanted to share with you, but as you probably noticed, Venezuela, Iran, and the entire Western order have all found their way into the shit. It has indeed been a busy few weeks. But while the world has been transfixed on chaos and upheaval in other countries, Saudi Arabia and its tribal allies got to kicking some serious arse in Yemen. When those tribes made their way onto Saudi soil, they weren't in a state of retreat. They were regrouping, gathering into a single united force that was tens of thousands strong and preparing for a massive counterattack. Nor did they simply plan to carve out a buffer zone or take enough of their own territory back that the Republic of Yemen government could still survive. They were coming for all of what the SDC had taken, and even the territory that the SDC had lived on for years. And this time, they had air support. Now, in order to understand what happened next, we've got to understand a couple of things about the way that fighting works in Yemen, because it's very different than anything you'll see almost anywhere else on Earth. Military offensives in this part of Yemen take place across massive, empty stretches of desert, using relatively small groups of fighters who can move rapidly in all directions and who tend to travel fairly light. Because they don't have many people to spare, they avoid urban combat, where battles can become very costly very quickly. But between the sheer mobility of an attacking force, the relatively small number of defenders you'll find in a given area, and the fact that nobody wants to fight to the death in cities and towns, this style of warfare overwhelmingly favors an attacking force, no matter which force is doing the attacking. But when it was the STC's turn, Saudi-backed tribal forces had two choices: fight exposed, in the open desert, at risk of being cut off and surrounded by attacking forces that were constantly on the move, or give up territory and live to fight another day. But once the STC had taken all that territory, it had basically switched roles, where now its forces had to choose either to defend in the open desert or retreat. And as hard as it would have been for those Saudi-backed tribes to defend themselves when the STC was ascendant, The SDC's problems were promising to be so much worse.
I was dead, and now I'm alive, not because of anything I've done, but because
Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow. Oh, I can skip it now. Okay.
Is that true zone?
But the counter-attacking tribes had Saudi air support, and if the SDC wanted to defend out in the desert, then they'd be sitting ducks. Once the Saudi...
All right, this video is getting a little too choppy and glitchy. To maybe we should. I'll just try and explain a little bit.
Hi, Troop Zone.
Because I don't want to play too much of that. How's it going? What's up? Thanks for popping in.
Hi, Black Light. Yeah, he was confusing me. And he kept jumping.
Right. So this is where I don't want to let him do too much
Sudan.
For us.
Oh, sorry. He kept jumping from UAE to Sudan.
No, go ahead.
Saudi Arabia to Yemen.
I'm gonna do a whole lot of jumping around tonight. You might want to buckle up. So there's a long story to tell here, but there's a lot worth learning about, and like I would hope it's probably been too long if people could remember we did an episode way back in the day about like Turkey and Qatar and stuff. So all of that stuff, if like the longer that you pay attention to these developments, the more you start to understand it. So I just kind of got fascinated by trying to understand what's happened with this, with Somalia, because we did that.
But we also did one with UAE and Sudan.
Yeah,
we did a Somalia one, but I have a little bit more with that one. But before we get started, Troop Zone, that was Tuesday. We do that on Tuesday. Tuesdays, drop the link. Tuesdays. On Thursdays, we do deep dives into information. You got to come on Tuesday because we definitely want you to come on.
Maybe after. I don't know, but this is going to be like a 3-hour kind of show probably if I get
my gosh, I don't know
try
if I can do
showing everything I want to. It's probably better to break these kinds of things up. But yeah, exactly. So because there's trying to understand, because I think it was last week or the week before, we did a show about trying to cover from Venezuela to Somalia to Cambodia and Thailand. And so I'm kind of trying to follow up a little bit on some of that. And I see this event happening. This was really significant because if you're not following what's happening in Yemen, a lot of the people in the independent media that are more on the trustworthy side, not the Tucker Carlson kind of fake independent media, but like Truth Wire as opposed to Truth Zone. Check those guys out if you like Fiorella, Isabella, and Pasta Jardula, and like RBN and these kinds of, The Cradle is a nice independent source that I got this. Actually, I should have been sharing a video from them maybe instead, because that's where they tipped me off to this. If you don't know the Cradle newspaper, I'll call that up real quick.
And you really should clarify.
Show you what I'm talking about.
You really should clarify when you say RBN, because it's really just Nick. He's the one that's heavy into foreign policy. All the other ones like stay more domestic and more like in the mess of all the stuff that goes on. Like they're almost sometimes it feels like TMZ vibes,
Yeah. So that's more from the Savvy, right? But I guess when I'm watching like Nick, he does more like a foreign policy kind of Marxist-Leninist sort of style. And so I don't remember what I was kind of mentioning them for.
Jacqueline wants to know what channel we were playing in the beginning, if you remember. I already closed it out.
Okay, I was talking about the Cradle as I listened to their podcast.
No. She was asking the video, the channel that we were playing in the beginning. I had already closed it, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I also closed the link too, but it's in the private chat if you want to open it up again. Yeah.
Oh, it's called Warfronts.
Yeah, it's just one of those things the YouTube algorithms recommended me, and so I just click on it to see what it is because I watch a lot of war update news for the Ukraine war and stuff like that, and so then it wants to give me other content creators covering this kind of stuff, and then I realized it's kind of the way that the algorithms are working is to try and get like the NATO CIA content, get you watching that instead without knowing what you're watching. So yeah, war fronts. Yeah. But viewer beware, buyer beware, you know. So let me show you share my screen. Shout out to the Cradle. This is more what I'm saying, because you were railing on like Tucker Carlson kind of media, and we need to give people an alternative of where they can get more trustworthy news.
The people love.
And this is kind of one of them.
They think he's doing the Lord's
news
work
on the Middle East. Let me see if I can.
You would swear people think Tucker Carlson's doing the Lord's work. It is so disgusting.
All right, you used to it. Here we go. Okay. So this is the Cradle. And I realized maybe I should share the YouTube video, but look up the Cradle podcast and you'll find them, right? Look for that kind of branding, right? So they are like video private, but they are like a pro-Palestinian, anti-Zionist news outlet, independent, not corporate funded. So, but I not really having a good start. Kind of get to the meat of the presentation, because the Saudi Arabia UAE dispute is about more than just Yemen. So that is the kind of clear takeaway. That Weeb front video thing, he'll tell you about how they're kicking some serious ass, right? And there's a kind of just want to report on the war stuff and not really tell you about why the conflicts, like what's the greater implications that's unfolding here. So just let me find my source. I got too many sources. Here we go. Did it try and... This is funny. What it is now? I gotta go to the archive because I got my free trial and now it's not there. A moment here.
Why are you doing that? Should I put something in?
You wanna? Yep. This will just take me a minute. Oh, I think here we go.
You got it?
Yeah. All right. That's a little too big. Yeah.
Right, Rago?
There we go. The Saudi Arabia dispute across the region to take side. Sorry, you glitched there. What's that?
I think because we're having a delay. I'm noticing that we're having a delay. But Rondo was like, "Who's cajoling now?" But go ahead.
Nobody yet. So yeah, here we go. So from January 8th, 2026. So this is a very, very fast developing year. A lot happening right away. So long simmering tensions between Saudi Arabia and the UAE burst dramatically into the open in the last week. The immediate crisis began last month when Emirati-backed forces in Yemen moved inland from their stronghold in Aden, capturing several Saudi-controlled oil-rich areas with seemingly little resistance. In mid-December, Saudi Arabia launched a fierce counterattack that drove the UAE not only from the captured areas, but potentially from all of Yemen. The confrontation was more than a local scrimmage. Saudi and Emirati media figures launched ferocious propaganda wars. Emiratis blasted Saudi Arabia for supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and bullying a smaller neighbor. Saudis lambasted the UAE as anti-Islamic and pro-Israel, and recklessly backing secessionists across the region. The language of mutual recrimination and accusation between longtime allies recalled the worst of what they used to say about Qatar during their joint 2017-21 blockade. The stakes this time are just as high. The confrontation is about more than Yemen. It's more than just an ordinary squabble among Gulf allies. The Saudi move against the UAE represents not just an effort to restrain Emirati adventurism, but to balance against an increasingly reckless and threatening Israel. The potential regional alignment lines were laid out clearly by the Saudi foreign minister's sudden trip to Cairo, where Egyptian officials affirmed their total support for Riyadh's views on Libya and Sudan after more than a decade of closer alignment with an economic dependence on the UAE. So basically, if there were to take people's word, what they're saying here, there's been a very decisive shift that's been happening here. Because what I was trying to say about the independent media is that we tend to be supportive of the Houthis because they're supportive of the Palestinians, and they're like the seen as Iranian proxy in Yemen. And so the way that the independent media I've been watching is framing it is that the Houthis are the ones that we should be backing, and the other forces in the Yemeni civil war are backed by the UAE and Saudi Arabia in a coalition so far working together to destroy the Houthis. So we've been that's been the dynamic for up until now. And it's a positive development for those of us who support the Houthis to see Saudi Arabia and UAE fighting each other instead of ganging up on the Houthis, who are commonly seen as the true national liberators of Yemen, but they're being isolated because they're considered a proxy of Iran, as opposed to like the true legacy of sovereignty of the nation, sort of thing. So, so now I guess the question hanging in the air is what's going to happen to the Houthis now, because while they were probably exploiting a lot of the infighting happening between the UAE and Saudi Arabia, but now there appears to be anyway that UAE has been completely kicked out of southern Yemen, and so now it's just the Houthis left to face off against Saudi Arabia when they're finished regrouping, right? But there's a broader alliance that's shifting, that's happening here, because we're going to try and tie in what's happening with Sudan and Somalia and Yemen all together, and with Gaza, right? Because this is all one big conflict. I think I said before that's not really seen that way, and Libya too, right? They're all just like different nodes in the spider web kind of thing. So Egypt has so far been guilty of assisting the UAE in the Libyan civil war, backing this General Haftar, along with France and Russia. So for people who want to be cheerleaders for Russia, analyzing their role in Libya and Sudan and these kinds of, like Somalia, this is kind of how you understand Russia doesn't exactly have anyone's like interests at heart. Just like when we talk about imperialist rivalry, unfortunately, the way that Russia and China appear to be operating with, who they're willing to work with in atrocities. We're calling it genocide in Sudan, right? There's the same kind of thing in Somalia. Like Ethiopia, there was just a massive war that people have kind of forgotten about already. But all of this is like these regions are powder kegs ready for more war. So if we're trying to stop genocide, we kind of need to pay attention to what's happening here. So, but Egypt apparently switching sides here. They're not ready to continue. It's starting to look bad because UAE is increasingly they're in lockstep with Israel now. So there's like an axis that needs to form. Like that's been the axis of resistance in the Middle East has kind of been destroyed, and it seems like there is a regrouping potentially. But now, can we trust nations like Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Pakistan to help Somalia? Because that's kind of what's happening here, and Qatar. So let me get back to the article. So that's a dramatic shift in regional order, and one that puts the region at a crossroads at a moment when Iran is reeling from another wave of domestic protests and when the United States' role remains unclear. The UAE has long been pursuing an aggressively independent policy in the region. During the 2011 Arab uprisings, it worked closely with Saudi Arabia in pushing back against potential democratic changes across the region. It joined the 2011 intervention in Libya and the 2015 Saudi intervention in Yemen, though it was never fully on board with the Syrian uprising against Bashar al-Assad. This is some of the stuff that I would say take with a grain of salt. I'm not sure about the strength of that kind of a claim. Emirati President Mohammed bin Zayed played a key role in shepherding Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's ascent to de facto power. This appears to be a very important piece of the puzzle here to keep in mind. The UAE, because a lot of people haven't followed these developments. They don't really understand what goes on in the Middle East. If we're a little too focused on saying America isn't in control of everything, we're not really concerned about what other political actors are up to. But Mohammed bin Salman, he did all kinds of like a political coup against his own royal family in order to ensure that he would secure his ascent to power. You know, like his father was getting old and was supposed to, like, power was supposed to go to his brother or something, I forget. And then, so MBS seems to have, I don't know if it was working with his father or not, or against his father's wishes. He made sure that he was the one who ends up being the crown prince in control of Saudi Arabia. And like, there was this, I forget which hotel it is. Maybe I have a source. I can get to it later, but he like rounded up all the royal family and a bunch of businessmen in Saudi Arabia in like a hotel and basically kept them in a gilded prison and blackmailed them into supporting his regime. And apparently, new thing I learned in my research here, the UAE president, Mohammed bin Zayed, whatever, another fucking, the Emiratis are like 7 monarchs that joined together. So this is when I criticize the Gulf monarchies. These are the people I hate and talking about. So when you analyze their Machiavellian power games and the devastating effect that it has on the people of the Middle East, the solutions are clear as far as what do the people need to thrive and live in peace and security. They need the abolishment of these monarchies, all of them. And so this is where you begin to understand what's motivating the UAE. They're desperate to fight any appearance of this Muslim Brotherhood that shows its face, because they're trying to make sure that there's no kind of political Islamic revolution in the Middle East that sweeps all the monarchies away, because they don't really have a justification, legitimate claim to power, right? They are an impediment to sovereignty of these nations, but the sovereignty of these nations in the classical feudalist, that conservative, that techno-feudalist kind of thing that everyone's terrified about, their legitimacy in their minds, these old-fashioned people, sovereignty for the nation comes through the bloodline of the royal family, and those things are inseparable. And we've had a fucking revolution, the bourgeois revolution, the liberal revolution back in the day was no, okay, sovereignty of a nation is more of a republic, a democracy kind of thing. We can move past this feudal thing. We can have this capitalist system that's not built on feudal relations. And now, so Marx was criticizing that the worst reactionaries are the ones that support the crumbling monarchy and feudalism, when the changing of times or whatever is just going to make those people obsolete. And it's ironic to see this resurgence. This is one of the things that I've been very, like, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense how these monarchies have survived, except then you understand how they have been complicit with U.S., like first British and then U.S. imperialism. They've been protectorates made into nations. They were royal families carefully cultivated and selected by the British in order to be deemed the true rulers of these patches of sand, right, with oil under it. And so now they have amassed all this power because they had this power handed to them by the British, who have now kind of become a lot less influential. So the British are kind of on more of an even playing field with these Gulf monarchies now. It doesn't make the British very happy, I would say. But this is the thing about understanding, like, Canada's moves on the world stage with the whole where what Mark Carney made this grandiose speech about how the old world order is dead and not coming back. Like, Canada's not going to be being very tough publicly about how Canada's not going to be America's bitch anymore, which I would love for them to see that, whatever. But if that's really true, what they're trying to do is make some very strong strategic alliances with countries like Qatar and the UAE and Saudi Arabia, even though all these nations have like a whole lot of tension with each other, and Europe, whatever. They're all gonna like just trying to do like this this third way kind of thing, like a non-alignment sort of echoing, but like a more imperialist version of the non-alignment movement, right? Led by probably the British monarchy. You know, the whole thing about UAE and Saudi Arabia used to see eye to eye with the, what do you call it? The Arab Spring 2011 thing that they're mentioning, all this, because the Muslim Brotherhood, they're alleging, is driving these Islamic revolutions to drive the monarchies out of power. So previously they're working together because the Saudi Arabia is completely anti-democratic, right? But now, for whatever reason, like because they haven't normalized, the UAE normalized ties with Israel, Saudi Arabia is not, Saudi Arabia is trying to walk the fine line of looking like they support the people in a sense. But anyway, I digress. I'm definitely just rambling. So you got any comments?
No, you're all over the place.
Yeah.
I was thinking of stuff, but I was like waiting for you to finish. But then I thought of something else.
Yeah,
so
that's
now
what
I'm
happens.
just like, I don't even remember anymore.
That's where one commentator has to learn not to go on too much. It's kind of rude. So.
No, it's fine. It was fine.
So this is where I'm kind of trying to share what I think I know here, but I prefer to try and let the information speak for itself. But this is where, in order to do that, people have this attention span problem or whatever. In order to make the case, I need to show you all these different sources, and then I try and put some commentary in there, and I get distracted and blah blah blah. So you want me to read some more, or?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose one could argue what we have here is somewhat of a bloodline monarchy, where like you have to be of a particular bloodline to even be in charge or what have you. It's just packaged a little differently to give you the what's the word I'm looking for? Idea of choice, or I can't think of the word, but you know what I mean. Like to give you the thought that you're actually choosing your candidate. I think the only thing that kind of broke that cycle was Donald Trump. I don't know how he got in there.
Like strategic voting kind of thing, or rank choice voting or something. That you're getting.
Yeah, well, or have more than a duopoly of parties. You know what I mean?
Well, Trump did certainly shake up the duopoly, but in a way that you still have a duopoly. So did he really? But he allegedly they took over the Republican Party, and this is where I think in order to understand any legitimacy to that kind of argument, we have to research this NRX movement, neo-reactionaries that are supporters of this techno-feudalism, right? So they are the kinds of people who actually look at these Gulf monarchies with some kind of admiration, because it's like this far-right wet dream to have a kingdom that like is all repressive and anti-democratic, and they get to have like they're all super right-wing values, family values, whatever, enforced, like these ICE people, whatever is so abnormal to us. It's evil, it's fascist, where they kind of see that as what should be normal, you know.
Exactly.
So,
I didn't really have anything on UAE specifically, but I did have a few little things just in case.
sure.
Some domestic stuff that I thought was pretty interesting.
Well, I think we need to recognize UAE as like a nasty snake in the grass to watch out for, because especially with this Trump war going on, I caught them doing a whole lot of comprehensive economic partnership agreements. You know how China's going around with this Belt and Road Initiative, right? Trying to make like a tariff-free agreement while the U.S. is trying to slap tariffs all over everybody. So that's a weird thing to me. It seems kind of like almost like a good cop, bad cop thing that they're doing with all the world, except that that would be an egregious misreading if the U.S. and China are actually in a real trade war. But it's just weird how it works out that way, because China has no problem whatsoever working with quite closely with the UAE, right? And just like critical of them doing business with Israel when that's some of the leverage that they could have been doing, but instead they want to talk nice on the diplomatic stage about Palestinian rights and stuff, two-state solution, but somehow they're not considered Zionists when they do business with Israel, and they actually openly advocate for a two-state solution, and they just kind of do talking out of both sides of their mouth support for Palestine. And then they do business with the UAE, who is now caught red-handed, like doing Israel's dirty work all over like Africa and the Middle East. And I'm seeing Israel trying to normalize ties with Afghanistan, and I'm seeing the UAE trying to kind of get their claws in Afghanistan. I'm betting you that they are, in a big way, not just the U.S., behind a lot of this meddling, trying to cause Pakistan and Afghanistan to have conflict. UAE and India are developing strong ties. Like these are military alliances that are forming now. If I can get to the other sources, right? I'm telling you, there's like the block that seems to be Turkey and Egypt and Pakistan and Somalia, right? And Sudan, the government of Sudan, not the RSF. And then there seems to be Israel and the UAE and India and the US and Greece and Cyprus on the other side, right? The NATO on the other side. And but Turkey is in NATO.
Okay.
So how do we say that Turkey's in this axis against? This is where we have to.
India's in BRICS, and so is Saudi Arabia. So that's why I'm like,
exactly. So what the fuck is going on here? We really need to understand about who are you putting your trust in. This is where you can try and defend China for being willing to work with these actors, but they're not trustworthy actors to make comprehensive agreements with. strategic partnerships. That's talking about these people like their allies when they are the ones literally responsible for the terrorism, and pretending the ones who say that they are fighting the counter-terrorist, whatever fight, are, of course, the ones supplying the real terrorists and then using them like a boogeyman. So that's the UAE, that is Israel, that is the US. We have the receipts enough times about they do talk a big game about, whoever sells weapons to Al-Qaeda or ISIS or the Taliban, bad people, slap them with sanctions. But they themselves are allowed to do it? No.
Well, it's kind of interesting at High Troop Zone. It's kind of interesting that you're saying that, because I have this clip. I don't know who this man is, but he's doing this talk. I think his name is Timothy Snyder. I should probably look that up. He's doing this talk, and he's like, "Why is ICE in Minnesota?" And since you took that down, I could pull it up. And it's kind of thank you. Oh, thank you. Well, I'll let him go first, and then I'll give you my ideas. Okay, here we go.
In Minnesota, because Minneapolis and Minnesota have functioning welfare states, because Minneapolis and Minnesota are parts of the United States that work. They're parts of the United States where people actually are able to live more or less free lives. That is why ICE is there, to try to prove that that doesn't work, to try to destroy it, to try to create chaos. Things, in fact, have
Snyder is
ICE in Minnesota.
American historian. That's who that person is, just so you know.
Yeah.
I found that quite interesting, because we talk about that a lot, about how these countries that have like communism or socialism could thrive if it weren't for the interference of all these capitalists trying to say, "See, look how this shit is failing." Yeah, because you're making it fail with your intervention. So I see where he's coming with this. Why ICE is in Minnesota. I think there's way more to it than just that part, but I think that is an added bonus to why ICE is in Minnesota, right? Because we already talked about how they want to remove the Somalians, deport them, who are overwhelmingly nationalized citizens or birthright citizens. Like out of all the groups that are here,
right?
And so to demonize them,
go ahead.
To demonize them and dehumanize them gives them the reason that they need to say, "Fuck the Constitution. We're revoking citizenship and sending you back to Somalia." And also, it helps Israel's case about Somaliland, where they want to dispel all of the Palestinians into Somalia. So I think there's like so many things involved that why ICE is in Minnesota, not just that. And then the reason I'm saying that is when we think about these alliances like BRICS and NATO, but then these other little break-off alliances, it just makes me wonder how aligned are these countries, or are they using this alignment as a buffer to protect them from the things that they're trying to do on the back end.
Right.
If that makes sense, what I'm saying.
Yeah, as far as trying to understand, there's a lot that's going on with Somalia and Somaliland and stuff. Another thing that's happening with them, wanted to look closer at the currency things, because what's happening in Iran, like Iran is having some pretty bad hyperinflation. Their currency has collapsed. So I was like looking into what's going on with other people's currency, and then so Yemen's having a nice currency recovery. They've recovered like half the value that they lost, kind of thing, or they doubled the value of the currency in the last year or a year and a half or something. So, which is really good for a country that's been devastated so much, right? That means that they're really instead of things falling apart more, they've had a chance to actually, in spite of everything that's been going on in the Middle East, they've been able to recover to some degree. So besides that, though, in Somalia, I found it interesting to find out that Somalia is reintroducing the Somali shilling after decades of delay, because Somalia is heavily dollar dependent, as we've talked about in other shows. And so because their currency collapsed a long time ago, they haven't been able to even implement a national currency, which is one of the reasons why people don't respect its sovereignty, is because it's been forced to use US dollars for decades as its national currency. And so now they're with the BRICS dollarization wave. One of the ways that the US is fucking with Somalia and Israel, right, is trying to sabotage their reimplementation of the Somali shilling. And there's not just Somaliland, but Puntland. They're trying to split it up into three to balkanize it, right? So this is the thing about the alliances that's forming. Like Saudi Arabia seems to be making a play, speaking as if they are against balkanization and about respecting the sovereignty of the internationally recognized government. UAE and Israel on the side of disrespecting the international recognized sovereignty of a government. Remember, Gaza's been internationally recognized as a nation, and yet they can't acknowledge that. So then now they want, this is a really big focus about Yemen and Somaliland. They're trying to force the internationally recognized government back into power, which is the Saudi-backed corrupt government, and not let the Houthis establish control over Yemen and be internationally recognized. And then they're trying to enforce the international recognition of Somaliland when the world has kind of rejected that for like 30 years for some reason. I wonder why, right?
So
there's this international law has this like big problem. Truth Zone
so
control itself.
You see Truth Zone? Now I told you we do that on Tuesday's Truth Zone. So that's up to you, Michael. If you but that would like really derail
I think
the
we
conversation.
should talk on Tuesday, because I won't
Tuesday
be able
will be
to share too much, because we're gonna run out of time. I'm gonna need to take Bella for a walk and eat some food and stuff, and because I know if we get talking with Truth Zone, depending on what he wants to talk about, it's gonna be over with for hours. And I don't want to feel.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you pulling up
for a few minutes.
Oh. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, I wouldn't trust him to promise he'd only speak for a few minutes if he pulled up or whatever. I feel like he'd stick around just to fuck with us because he likes to have fun.
Well, I told you Truth Zone is going to tell you. But Tuesday, Thursdays is our serious discussion days. Tuesday is when anybody that wants to pull up can pull up. So if you misunderstood me or I said it wrong, I apologize. Lance, I'm enforcing the Tuesday rule. Yeah. To keep it consistent.
Thanks for trying to come up though anyway. Please like on your way out.
Thank you, Truth Zone. And I'll be talking to you anyway on your channel. But yeah, come back Tuesday. And we start earlier too. I think we start at 1 p.m. Central? 2 p.m. Eastern? Is that right?
I was. Yeah,
or 2 p.m.
2 p.m.
Central,
Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. Although I was thinking maybe we should move it like a half hour back or something if you want. But we'll talk about that.
Yeah, fine by me. Okay. Well, anyway, back to this. I I don't know if you want to go back to what you were talking about. I have a few more things about ICE just to get it over with and out of the way. Or
Sure, go
we're not
ahead.
gonna back to that.
While we're on the topic, might as well.
Okay. Let me share this one then. Stephen Miller is out of his mind, and but they mean it. They definitely mean it. So let's see.
This unhinged post is
Okay.
Stephen Miller's latest unhinged post is this one. It contains an order to state and local law enforcement in Minneapolis and Minnesota to stand down and surrender to federal law enforcement. Let me give you a second to absorb it. It says, stand down and surrender. Aside from the fact that Stephen Miller doesn't even have the authority to order a virgin margarita at a Mexican restaurant, let alone command law enforcement to do anything. Can somebody show Miller the 10th Amendment? Does he know that there is a constitutional principle called the anti-commandeering doctrine that prohibits the federal government from issuing any type of order to state and local law enforcement? Stand down? But I got to tell you, the more concerning word here is this one, surrender. Miller is telling law enforcement in Minnesota that they must surrender to federal authorities. And if you're wondering for a second whether he's serious or not, I beg you, take his word seriously. Because Miller...
Oops.
Stephen Miller's late...
Sorry. But you should take it seriously because, let me see if I can show this tab instead.
Well, it's
You're
like
not gonna,
color of the law thing, I'd say.
yeah, you're not going to hear audio, but these guys were fixing a roof. Now look at the neighborhood, okay? They're done with the roof. How much you want to bet that homeowners called ICE on them so they wouldn't have to pay them?
Waited for them to finish their working on their roof and then called ICE. That's pretty fucking gross. But I would not be surprised if certain people with those kinds of houses, yeah.
Right. And then look what ICE does. Because they were like, fuck it, we ain't coming down. ICE calls the fire department. The fire department is trying to coerce them off the roof so they could be taken into ICE custody. Look at them. That's our tax dollars at work.
I shouldn't laugh because it's like, it seems comical, but then after I'm sure they got them off that roof and they're on their way to trying to justify why they should be deported and whatnot. Whether don't know anything about their actual status, so we shouldn't jump.
Right, we don't even know, right?
Yeah.
And I don't you remember this lady. This is a lot longer, so I'm not going to share it, but for lack of time. But this is the lady, I've shown her before. She's a farmer, and she is exposing how they're using ICE to get slave labor out of the help. So you notice Trump they're not going into hotels. They're not going into construction sites anymore. They're not going to farmlands anymore because I guess the lobbyists and the business owners pushed back and was like, hey, you taking all my fucking, like slave labor. What are you doing? So instead of doing that, they're just going out in the streets, just racial profiling people and picking them up whenever, and of course, cruelty is the point. To scare folks and whatnot.
Yeah, terrorism, really. They're trying to terrify people into accepting whatever. They're trying to do like I think, remember we're talking about the Project 2025. I thought one of the things they're trying to do with that is like achieve a bloodless revolution for the right, to install this.
I mean, it's coming out and saying it now. So whatever.
They think they understand they've got all this technology and this research on human psychology. They think they can just condition us into whatever they want. I feel like they got another thing coming. So,
Right.
but people are
100%
pretty sleepy.
I have something else, but it more refers to Greenland, and it shows like the past actions of the U.S. and the U.K., how they like took a complete island off of Madagascar so they can build a military base on it, and just like picked up all the people and just dropped them off
Funny you
somewhere
mentioned
with no
Madagascar,
resources.
because you know the UAE, they got some.
Oh, well then let me show it to you. Then
Sorry.
if it's relevant, then I'll show it, and it's only like 2 minutes.
Well,
But
if I can swing around to Madagascar, I think it's just ironic, right? Because I had a thought in my all big massive research project to try and remember about the Generation Z protest in Madagascar and Morocco. And what do I find in my research about who is UAE got some strong ties with these countries? Because it turns out that the UAE is going to be training 1 million 1 million young people from Madagascar in programming. So this Gen Z revolution is about turning Madagascar's millions of young people into the tech worker, the very low paid programming, whatever, specialist tech workers for the UAE, who is famous, along with Qatar, for using migrant workers like slave labor and treating them horribly, right? And this is where to tie it in with ICE, right? This is all about the abusive tactics that they're using to control the migrant labor workforce. You know, they're trying to terrify them into much more worse conditions. Now, what do you think? What kind of conditions do you think they're willing to take from their employer to make sure their identity stays secret? You know what I mean?
Right. That's kind of something with that. That's kind of what the lady, the farmer, that's kind of like what she was saying, that people are terrified, and now farmers could even pay them even less, just for the thought of having protection to not get picked up by ICE. You just come to work every day for these slave wages, and ICE won't come to the farm to scoop you up. But if you don't show up, then we might send them your address or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just disgusting.
Yeah. Or, they'll do things like, you gotta let me fuck your wife or whatever if you don't want to leave, right? If you don't want to be deported.
Hey, we're devolving into that for sure.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. It's kind of like it reminded me of like Greenland right now, but it also has so many other implications for the United States and what they're doing with ICE, because eventually they want slavery back in America as much as they can legally get it done. So Black people, we need to watch out for that 13th Amendment, because that's how they could legally get it done for us. Just wanted to say that, but here we go.
US and the UK conspired to remove an indigenous population from their island and steal it to build a military base. See, in the 1960s, the US was determined to build a base on the island of Diego Garcia due to its strategic location in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It's important to note Diego Garcia is part of the Chagos Archipelago, which was governed as part of Mauritius, which was under British colonial rule. Remember that. It's crucial to the story. There was one major issue in securing Diego Garcia, though. It had been home to the Chagosian people for centuries. Chagosians are mainly of African and Indian ancestry. Enter the secret deal between the US and the UK. The UK owed the US $14 million for submarine missiles. The US agreed that if the UK could get them Diego Garcia, that $14 million debt would go away. There were a few conditions, though. First, everything about this deal had to remain top secret. They wanted to avoid protocols that required the UK to report to the UN about its continued colonial rule.
Okay, that in and of itself is fucked up because you're acting like these people are just your property. Oh, I'll forgive your debt.
How do you have an internationally binding
situation?
How do you have an internationally binding sale of territory to another nation that you keep secret parts of the deal? And we all think it's okay to be legally like upheld in international law?
Yeah.
This is where the people writing international law are criminals. Okay.
Right. It's not your land to begin with, but somehow you could just sell it. What? Okay. So let me go back a little bit.
Though. First, everything about this deal had to remain top secret. They wanted to avoid protocols that required the UK to report to the UN about its continued colonial rule over a country with a permanent population. Secondly, the US insisted that the islands had to be cleared of Chagosians. The UK assured there will be no indigenous population except seagulls. Putting the plan in motion, the UK forced Mauritius to give Chagos up as a requirement for independence. And then from 1960,
same playbook every time. They use people as a proxy.
Bargaining
we want bargaining chip, proxy, whatever. We want our independence. They're doing it right now with the Venezuelans that are dancing in the street and the like there's two coins to every story. So the Venezuelans that they're showing you dancing in the street are actually in like Miami and shit. They're not in the streets of Venezuela because they have a totally different view. And so, I mean, majority rules, but because there might be some Venezuelans that are happy, just like some Iraqis seem to be happy. But then look what happened to Iraq, and they had to realize, that celebration, we should have rethunk that before we, this is America we're talking about.
Right.
Anyway.
So this is, you showing me this reminds me of, because we were talking about Madagascar. France has like some claims to this day to a lot of these islands out there. And so this one was under the British colonial control, but Madagascar was under French control. And it's interesting to connect the dots with France being kicked out of northern Africa. And the U.S. is probably taking advantage of trying to fill the gap there. Like
so
in Nigeria, that's sort of what happens, right? France gets kicked out, U.S. moves right in. And so we've got to kind of watch what's happening because U.S. is taking advantage of the anti-colonial struggle to advance neocolonialism, and UAE is kind of helping them, along with Israel. So,
and not to belabor the point, but the UK forced the Mauritius to give Chagos up as a requirement for their independence. So there's no honor amongst. Or maybe they were in such a desperate spot. I don't know, but you can see the skin tone. So
that's where, in order to achieve balkanization,
comes,
well,
with
in name only, they support
colonialism,
independence. Yeah.
With colonialism comes colorism, like a built-in psychological warfare. So probably in these people's minds, just by looking at the color of skin alone, they were justified in doing what they were doing because it's nothing but black people anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway.
As a requirement for independence. And then from 1965 to 1973, the UK forcibly removed the entire Chagosian population from the Chagos Archipelago, or as they call it, British Indian Ocean Territory. Today, Diego Garcia is home to a massive military base that played a significant role in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and the so-called global war on terror. But what happened to the Chagosian people? During their removal, Chagosians were herded onto the bottom of cargo ships, not allowed to bring much with them, and then abandoned in Mauritius and the Seychelles. Families were separated and they were forced to live in foul conditions. Chagosians experienced severe hardships and discrimination. and what was promised to them was never delivered, leaving them without the means to rebuild their lives. But this isn't ancient history. Chagosians who endured this displacement are still alive, like Bernadette, who was a little girl when her family was forced off Diego Garcia.
How do I feel? Frustrated. Where is my right to negotiate with somebody on my behalf without my consent? I never gave my consent to anybody to negotiate on my behalf.
Throughout the years, Chagosians continued to demand their right to permanently return home.
Shout out to AJ.
Well, shout out to, I don't know about shout out because this is something to point out. This video, while it seems like it's coming from a leftist, whatever, on our side perspective, it comes from Al Jazeera, which needs to be stressed, is a Qatari state media run news outlet. Okay. So that there, you have to understand how the rivalry between Qatar and the UAE, maybe I should call up that source, whatever, because
Well, I did fact check the story.
Right. No, I'm just saying, just to understand the AJ, whatever, Al Jazeera, why they would find, like, this is what I'm saying. They act like they're anti-imperialist when it suits them, but then they have an American military base in Qatar that gets bombed by Iran after Iran tells them if they're going to bomb it before they bomb it so that nobody gets hurt. So what kind of an anti-imperialist actor is Qatar? You know, the UAE accuses them of propping up supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and everything. And they're trying to get the world, actually the US, this is another important kind of breaking news that goes along with all of these developments, is the US has declared the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and Lebanon and Jordan as a terrorist organization or linked to terrorists, right? So they can sanction them. And the Muslim Brotherhood denies. They say they're just a political organization that does no violence, and they're just being targeted, whatever, right? So there's this rivalry between the UAE and Qatar, and it's interesting because the UAE casts themselves as like the secular nation. They're trying to be like the enlightened, the woke Arabic country. And they're fighting against the Islamists, who are like anti-democratic, I guess, anti-Western, modern values kind of thing. But their claim to this actual secular stuff, it really falls apart when you see that they're just allied with like Israel and stuff. So, what am I? I gotta try and find this. Sorry, my source is here. Allow me. Give me a moment here. Okay.
I just messed up my whole layout, and I don't know how to get out of it. Ay.
Sorry, what's that?
Oh, maybe here.
Is it working there?
Okay, I got it. I found it. How to get out of it.
You good?
Oh, Jacqueline.
All right, so
Screen
this is
froze.
UAE and the Muslim Brotherhood, a story of rivalry and hatred from 2017. Yeah, if you're getting out of here, Jacqueline, sorry. I really got to fix my computer or get a new one or something, but I got to get a job. And so maybe we got to start getting our donation links up there, begging for some more money again, wherever, because kind of need to, in order to deliver better content to the viewers, we maybe need some resources to upgrade our equipment. I don't know about you, Abby, but is your equipment kind of not the best?
It's not the best, but I can stream, like I could play the videos, but
Well, we could play it, but it's usually poor quality. It's like skipping and laggy, and
I mean, it
it's
plays better than
maybe our
yours.
inexperience, but also some of it's bad old equipment that's obsolete at this point. My computer is the problem is the Windows 10. They stopped servicing it and trying to force me to get Windows 11, and my computer's not compatible for that. It's too old. So,
Before you get started, this is a very good point, Sean, because there have been, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but there have been a lot of RAM companies or tech companies who most of their revenue came from selling RAM to consumers. And recently, I think at least 2 companies have discontinued their sale of RAM to users, and they will only be selling RAM to data centers. And they've jacked up the
this
price.
is part of what you're bringing up, that article about they're pissed off that we're holding on to old devices, and it's like screwing up their plans for the economy. Well, fuck you, okay? Because my old device will work just fine if we actually, like, they're not innovating in a way that allows us to reuse our, like, to update our old technology to, you know, to make it efficient still. They're trying to make
Because
you
they
buy a
don't-
whole new
Yeah,
right?
they call it digital hoarding. They want us to buy a whole new phone, a
Hey,
whole
John.
new laptop, a whole new everything. At
exactly.
least every 1 year or 2 years.
Yeah. But you're right. I don't want Windows 11 either. This is where I only stick with what I know, because I have this big learning curve and I don't know what to get if I got something new. But I was willing to look into that until I got rug pulled with losing my income there. And then now I'm thinking I can't afford to buy a new computer. I got to use the money I have until I can find a new job. So I think Linux, I've been hearing some things. I need to look into what that is. It's probably...
Isn't it an IBM operating system, Linux?
If it's smoother,
I think it's
and
open
because I feel like
source.
this Windows is designed to give you viruses.
Well, Windows, they leave a lot of their ports open in the back, so it's easier to get viruses on a Windows operating system because they don't close all their ports.
But whatever they're doing, whatever reason they stated motivation is bullshit. Because I think they're leaving whatever ports open so that they can do all like spying and stealing of your data,
and also sell you virus scanners.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. They want to let the viruses in so that they can sell you a scanner that doesn't even work. So yeah, I think the open source stuff is something we got to get back to talking about, as far as instead of talking about the problems, get to the solutions. But today's more about the problems.
Meantime,
This
you
is
can
a newly developed rivalry.
Oh, sorry. Just one last comment.
No, it's
in the meantime, you can repartition your hard drive and add Linux. That way, you don't lose your Microsoft operating system, just to test it out. Your dad would know how to do that.
Yeah, you'd have to. We'll talk offline about that stuff.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Yeah, me and my dad have been having tension. Anyway. Sure.
Okay, I'll be right back.
I've been asking him to help me fix this thing for a while, but for whatever reason, he doesn't really want to help me. So, but yes, you go ahead. Be right back, Abby. Let me get back to this explanation. I guess Abby's gonna miss it a little bit, but maybe she'll watch later. And because this is one of those like things that you don't really understand if you're not really from the Arabic world. How am I supposed to know what the fuck is the difference between the Muslim Brotherhood and all these other Arabic organizations and which one's good and which one's bad? But we'll figure it out if we keep our research trails kind of going. More you investigate, the more you learn. So UAE and the Muslim Brotherhood, story of rivalry and hatred. For more than 2 decades, the UAE has been at the forefront of the fight against all forms of what is usually referred to as political Islam in the Gulf and beyond, even though they are ostensibly a Arabic nation themselves. The Muslim Brotherhood, which is the most obvious manifestation of Islamic activism, has been or not Arabic. Did I say Arabic? I meant Islamic. Which is the most obvious manifestation of Islamic activism, has been its primary target. However, the relationship between the Muslim Brotherhood and the ruling families of the Seven Emirates, including the most powerful of the families, the Al Nahyan of Abu Dhabi, was relatively amicable during its beginnings more than 40 years ago. Like other Gulf states during the 1950s and 60s, the UAE imported large numbers of professionals from other parts of the Arab world, notably Egypt, Syria, Jordan, and Palestine. The most important sector was education, for which many qualified teachers were needed for the thousands of pupils and students. Some of these Arab expatriates came with intellectual baggage. Some were nationalists, Nasrites or Baathists, whereas others were Islamists, mostly affiliates of the Muslim Brotherhood, but also of Hizb ut-Tahrir. With their presence, these expatriates sought to influence their students and the other nationals with whom they interacted. Soon after independence in 1971, the earliest cohort of students who had spent time studying in Egypt and Kuwait returned to the UAE. During their time in these countries, the young men had become more closely acquainted with the Muslim Brotherhood and its ideology. In 1974, a group of them founded Jama'at al-Islah Reform Society, following the example of the Muslim Brotherhood in Kuwait, which was a pioneer in Islamic activism in the Gulf. So they're basically trying to do reform over revolution, right? They're trying to use soft power to influence the government, and they're being kind of recognized as a threat, even if they're not an actually extremist kind of against the law threat. They are nonetheless a threat to the prevailing order, whether they like it or not. Well, I'm sure they know full well, but they have to be. In order to overthrow a corrupt regime, you have to be a threat to it in a way, right? So throughout the 1970s, ideological groups of varied convictions were not only active, but permitted and encouraged. They were quick to make use of a new law that allowed and regulated the establishment of social, cultural, media, and sports organizations. So this is where people like the UAE would say, oh, they're using a law against us, whatever. So they're following the law then? Is that what we're getting at? And it's like, well, but yeah, but no. So they really have this problem, like with the Palestinian activist groups. You know, they are they're very critical of being beaten at their own game, because they like to infiltrate the civic society of nations that they want to manipulate. But then when someone else does it to them, they cry all kinds of foul. You know, like. I'm starting to wonder.
Straight Karen energy.
Is it fair to say that the Muslim Brotherhood is like the what's that?
Oh, see that delay? I said that like a minute ago. I said straight Karen
It's a delay,
energy.
but it's a lag on top of the normal delay because my computer's got too many tabs open. It's probably my problem. But
I said straight Karen energy. They wanna like bully you, and then when you stick up for yourself, then they want to cry about it.
Exactly, right. So I was gonna say, I think that it might be fair to think of the Muslim Brotherhood like the AIPAC of the Islamic world, like, but instead of for Zionism, it's like for Arab unity, kind of, or like Muslim unity, like the Pan-Arabism kind of thing. You know, there's Pan-Arabism and Pan-Africanism. So I'd say Muslim Brotherhood, maybe someone should tell me why that's a really maybe inaccurate or offensive characterization, because I feel like they have a whole lot of political clout all over the Muslim world, and the UAE fears them, not because they're they fear them because they're powerful, not because they're weak, you know. But they have, I think, suffered some serious setbacks. The Muslim Brotherhood is like in Egypt anyway. they're like a defunct, like they're not able to do anything in Egypt, at least like they're kept underground or something, right? So, but there are developments happening that I want to get into. I'm probably not going to get into it because I keep saying like I gotta get going on the sources, right? Because I'll share them in the Discord later, but I feel like no one's gonna have time to go through them. That's why I want to go through them on live anyway. So let me lay out the groundwork for the story here. So all the groups benefited from the fairly tolerant environment of the 1970s. One of these early organizations was the Student Union. Although it was initially founded by nationalists and Nasserites, Islamist students won the election for its leadership in 1981 and have dominated it ever since. This article is written in 2017, by the way. Following their victory, the Islamist students were invited to an audience with UAE President Sheikh Zayed Al Nahyan. The group included a young man called Sultan bin Kayed Al Qasimi, a member of the Ras Al Khaimah Emirates ruling family, and later the head of the country's Islamic movement. Al Qasimi was arrested in April 2012 and is currently serving a prison sentence for his affiliation with the Muslim Brotherhood. So you see, the ruling class does have their inter-conflict among themselves, right? That's a sultan arresting a sultan for an affiliation with a legal entity that they are demonizing, trying to force them to become like a underground resistance movement. So although the student union was not regarded as a legal entity, it was recognized and welcomed by the president. Throughout that period, affiliates of the Islamic movement were unrestricted in their social and cultural activities, organizing youth camps and scouts outings in the desert as and when they wished. In the 1980s, the UAE reorganized its national security agency. A former Egyptian security officer, Fuad Alam, who was known for his deep hostility towards and contempt of the Muslim Brotherhood, was recruited from Egypt and put in charge of the process. Alam was accused by many members of the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood of personally torturing them during interrogation in the Nasser era. This is where we skipped over this historical. We'll have to maybe do an episode talking about Egypt in the 1970s and the Nasser era. And there was like this, like Egypt, Syria kind of alliance, Egypt, Palestine, Syria thing about fighting back against Israel. There's that 6-day war. Egypt lost. Now Egypt's kind of on the wrong side of history with the El-Sisi dictatorship. But because UAE interfered in Egypt in 2013 to oust the Muslim Brotherhood elected president to install the Sisi dictatorship that is still in power today, which one of the other sources I found is a significant, a relevant factor to be mentioned, at least in passing, but that should be focused on is Egypt's had elections this January with a voter turnout of like 37%, because nobody really believes that those elections are fair. Just by the way, when in the context of criticizing Venezuela for not having fair elections, and the whole excuse, the pretext for kidnapping Maduro is that he's not the legitimate president. Well, the fucking Egyptian dictator El-Sisi, they're having sham elections, re-entrenching the illegitimate ruler of Egypt, and nobody cares. Nobody gives a fuck. Anyway, just wanted to mention that. How's it going, KYE and Indy? Good to see you guys. Thank you for popping in. Abby, you got anything to say there?
I'm here. I just got back, so I didn't hear the entire story. So no, not right now.
Cool. Sure. I'll just.
But hi, Andy. Hi, kill you, boys. Get back.
And I didn't say hi to Lance either. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So this coincided with a fierce competition at the cultural, intellectual, and political levels between the Islamists on the one hand and the nationalists and Nasserites on the other, I guess, in Egypt. By the late 1980s, the UAE authorities, especially in Abu Dhabi, had become increasingly suspicious of the Islamic trend, which they perceived as a potential threat. These fears were fanned by opponents of the trend, some of whom occupied senior positions in various public sector departments. The honeymoon the Islamists enjoyed under Sheikh Zayed Al Nahyan came to an end in 1987. right around the end of the Cold War. It's interesting how all these shifts kind of happen for reasons. So Sheikh Zayed's third son, Mohammed bin Zayed, emerged as an influential figure with ambitions to beat his two older brothers to the throne. It is believed that bin Zayed was personally tutored by individuals who held a deep grudge against the Muslim Brotherhood. It's kind of implying that the leaders of the UAE were almost brainwashed to hate these people. The same year, bin Zayed tried to unseat the ruler of Sharjah, the third-ranking emirate in the Federation. Sharjah's ruler, Sheikh Sultan Al-Qasimi, had been an outspoken critic of some of the policies adopted by the central government in Abu Dhabi. His decision to ban alcoholic drinks in his emirate in 1985 was seen as a coup for the Islamists, and one that potentially portrayed Abu Dhabi as un-Islamic. Bin Zayed wanted to replace him with his brother Abd al-Aziz, but Dubai objected and the plan was thwarted in a matter of days. Bin Zayed also suspected that the Islamists in the UAE had sided with Sharjah's ruler. And advised by former Egyptian security officers, bin Zayed took charge of the UAE security agency in the early 1990s, a development that proved to be particularly detrimental to the Islamists. Throughout the 1990s, a plan called Drying the Springs was implemented to exclude Islamists from public office and restrict their activities in the public domain. No Islamists were spared, including those who had no known affiliation or those who were affiliated with apolitical groups, such as the Tabligh community. So they carry out a political witch hunt against their opposition. A number of charities and social services NGOs were forced to close, including the Abu Dhabi Charitable Association, the Islamic Relief Committee, and a number of local zakat funds. Quranic study circles operating inside mosques were then closed and banned. A Quranic studies summer project known as Sheikh Zayed Holy Quran Project, which was initiated jointly by the Minister of Al-Qaf and the Ministry of Education in 1983, was shut down completely in 1992. So basically, you get the point. The early 1990s saw a number of incidents in which Arab expatriates were detained and or deported for their Islamic leanings. In 1992, a Palestinian suspected of links to Hamas was arrested, detained, and tortured to elicit information about Hamas operations inside the Palestinian territories. This case indicated that Abu Dhabi security agencies had been doing business with foreign powers that regarded Hamas as a terrorist organization, basically before they actually admitted to the world that they were working with Israel. This is kind of how you can see all the way back then, the UAE, based on their persecution of the Muslim Brotherhood, they were doing this on behalf of the, Zionists in Israel. And so the more that you act as the attack dog of the Zionists, the less you get to be on the side of any of the rest of the Arabic nations trying to support the Palestinian cause. So maybe I should move on from this article, but not to belabor the point, but I'm trying to establish that the UAE has like this blood feud with the Muslim Brotherhood, and like the Muslim Brotherhood's maybe part of this resistance network that's been supporting Palestine. And we're trying to say, stop the genocide in Palestine. We want to be against this U.S. designation of Muslim Brotherhood.
ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Muslim Brotherhood, the RFS, Hamas, they're all getting paid handsomely for their work. So probably the ones who aren't getting paid as handsome.
Well, I don't know about
or
all of
ICE,
them. They
because
got
they're
probably
not getting.
A lot of the people doing the work, maybe not getting paid a lot to do it, right? But because they use the religious conviction to get a lot of this work done. So it's donations from people, and it's people doing volunteer work. And then there's like wealthy business people, like Muslim businessmen and stuff, and institutions. So there's a lot of wealthy power in like Islam has a lot of wealth, just like Christianity. You know what I mean? So when you analyze it.
Yeah, you're right. Some, because it's just like ICE, not all of them are getting paid that handsomely for their work, but the ones who are in control of them are. But they're getting paid.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, we'll see, because their bonuses aren't even paid up front. They're like overtime. So I think they're getting more paid more handsomely than they actually will. But they are white Christian nationalists, most of them. So they think it's their duty and their call, their calling or what have you. And half of them probably never even read the Bible, but whatever.
Yeah. This is where when I talk about religion, I struggle to have too much of a. You're supposed to not be like, if you're insulting about something, it kind of biases your analysis of it.
Well, it's
I'm
not
trying to find
insulting
the
to read to read the teachings. Like Israel is the children of Jacob. That's in the Bible. That's not insulting to say that. To say those Eastern Europeans are not Israelites. It's just a fact that you could pull out of the Bible very easily.
Well, it's
not the
just like,
Schofield Bible, though. Not the Schofield Bible, the reinterpreted version.
That's where that's a whole rabbit hole. I kind of want to refrain from making too many comments about that kind of thing. I'm a little distracted, my attention split, so I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I don't mind talking about it, but that's not what we're talking about tonight anyway. But I don't mind saying it.
I feel like compelled to respond to what you're saying, but I'm kind of also wanting you to be the one talking while I look for a source here, and I shouldn't try to do both. It's just my bad. Go ahead.
I think this was really funny. I just while you're looking for something, I'm going to go back to the point that we were talking about on Tuesday about, I didn't even realize, that black man that was saving Jake Lane. It wasn't just him. It was this Muslim dude too. And he was just like, kind of saying the same stuff that the black guy was saying, but from his Muslim upbringing, what have you. And then the two trans women that came in and saved him. And it wasn't 24 hours. Jake Lane went on Alex Jones, and I want you to see what he called these people.
Right here is the prime example of Martin Luther King's dream.
Just go. Just go. Let him go, y'all.
And so this brother, he's showing Jake Lane in his mind, psychologically, he's like, yeah, he can see that I'm different. He's going to see the content of my character. Less than 24 hours later, Jake Lane showed him the content of his character.
And before I show you how he showed him the content of his character, you see his shirt, how it says Esau?
Yeah.
Well, if you know your Bible, that's
Not
Jacob's
just his
brother,
shirt. What
right?
the hell is this guy wearing? He's wearing his heart on his sleeve. His black.
That's Jacob's brother, Esau.
Rotten.
The son of Rebecca and Isaac. So anyway, I'm just saying
the way
interesting since we were just talking about it.
Israeli, he's got that Star of David and everything. It makes me wonder: is he a pro-Zionist commentator?
No, he's not. No, he's not.
Good.
No.
All right.
He's he's a.
This is where you maybe gotta be careful.
If you read it, it says Esau is the end of the world. I think that's what that says on his shirt.
Is this maybe one of these Hebrew Israelites?
Yeah,
I don't understand that.
He's a Hebrew Israelite.
I need to research them.
Well,
that's
anyway,
where I think,
so Jacob is about
the political matrix is the Hebrew Israelite too. But I think he also has some criticisms of some of them within his own community, like behaving a little bit silly. We would have to have. We've been meaning to have him on. I've been failing to reach out. Yeah.
Right. We can criticize any group, right? But we could talk about that later. Oh, what I just do? Okay. So
there seems to be religious zealots in some way. So some of them. So
maybe I'm not going to argue that point. But they study that Bible, and they know how to pull out information and
They know the Bible like the back of their
humble
hand.
you real
but
quick.
you know, that's like
But,
my problem with that.
Anyway, he's talking about Jake Lane. I just pushed it back a little bit, I think. So how Jake Lane showed his content of his character just 24 hours after being saved by a Muslim, a black man, a black American, or maybe you would say American Indian. I don't know who this person is. And 2 trans women.
Less than 24 hours later, Jake Lane showed him the content of his character.
I think it's very encouraging that it was almost no black folks at these things, and the few black folks there were protecting you.
Alex, I have 2 words for you. Irina Zaruski. Irina Zaruski. Don't start with me on this type of like wishy-washy, we've got to coddle to these people that are murdering us 41. Alex, don't start with me with that, because you will get this internal fire in me that thinks about that video of Irina Zaruski, some dread-headed absolute animal with 20 prior arrests that was let out because he was black by one.
The content of that brother's character was he put himself in harm's way. He could have been unalived. He put himself in harm's way to protect this white supremacist from other white people. And you know how he got repaid? By him calling him and his people animals. Right here.
I just thought that was interesting. You have your stuff queued up. That on his head, by the way, is called a... Go ahead.
That's just up in the same category as I went to Israel as a Christian evangelist, and I got spat on, and I don't understand why.
No, he actually said, it was a wonderful experience. I only got spat on like once. What?
Yeah.
Baby, that's one time too many.
So it goes to show you, right? It's not just white people that can be very, very gullible and silly, you know, like with their that's some idealist bullshit right there. That's maybe the best for the materialist kind of critique would be to say this is a fucking around finding out kind of thing, but not so much on a geopolitical stage as it is with believing in your religious idealism. I'm gonna go turn the other cheek. They're gonna love me for it, whatever. And then you're gonna find out that you're whatever, full of shit. You're really stupid to believe that kind of stuff. But that when you criticize religious people as being stupid for believing something, it's maybe more of an ad hominem attack as opposed to taking like criticism of your position is not intelligent and been revealed to be like falsified for as stupid, you know. But
You ready? You got your stuff queued up?
Yeah,
you do. It's right here.
Oh, now we're both hitting the button.
Oh, my bad.
One more time.
I'm leaving it on.
Okay, cool. Here we go. So this is very interesting find. You always got to be aware of these the sources. I haven't taken the time to vet them, but this seems like the National, probably conservative, right wing. Egypt, UAE, and Saudi Arabia welcome U.S. terrorist listing for Muslim Brotherhood. Regardless of the source, though, the fact that Saudi Arabia and the UAE, while they're in the process of fighting each other over Yemen, are both happy to agree, like to continue working with the United Front with the U.S. on their so-called terrorist, whatever, counter-terrorist alliance. It's very confusing. I'm sure it's just like boilerplate statements for the public. But it is like you can't just, in order to try and understand, is Saudi Arabia backing the Muslim Brotherhood? Because UAE might kind of accuse them of doing that. But then Saudi Arabia, at least publicly, is denying that they do that, right? So I don't really think Saudi Arabia, the reason they sided with the UAE against the Muslim Brotherhood for the same reason that they are monarchs trying to avoid a democratic wave, an Islamic democratic wave of unseating them from power. So they're natural allies against this Muslim Brotherhood. And this is how the U.S. terrorist designation kind of shows that, even though they're going to do their multipolar, inter-imperialist rivalry, okay, Egypt too. So Washington sanctioned Brotherhood branches in Egypt, Lebanon, and Jordan. January 14th, 2026, from Kamal Tabika in Cairo. Egypt has welcomed the U.S. decision to designate the Muslim Brotherhood branch in the country, as well as those in Jordan and Lebanon, as terrorist organizations. The move was praised by the UAE and Saudi Arabia. If you'll remember, we talked about Lebanon was being pressured by Israel to accomplish an impossible objective of demilitarizing or whatever, demilitarizing Hezbollah, I think it was. And because the Lebanese government was incapable of doing that, they didn't have the resources or maybe even the political will to do that. Now they're manufacturing a terrorist designation to continue expanding the greater Israel. So the move was praised by both UAE and Saudi. Yep. Egypt said the U.S. designation announced on Tuesday was a landmark step reflecting the danger of security. The U.S. Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control said the Egyptian and Jordanian branches provided material support to Hamas for its fight against Israel in Gaza, including fundraising and logistics, and worked to undermine and destabilize regional governments. The State Department separately listed the Lebanese branch. So basically, just to kind of go over that again, they're saying because you did fundraising and logistics to stop a genocide, we're going to label you terrorists and try and use international law to stop you from stopping a genocide, right? Fuck you. The State Department separately listed the Lebanese branch Al-Jama al-Islamiyya as both a foreign terrorist organization and a specially designated global terrorist, a label also given to its Secretary General, Mohammed Fawzi Takosh. Egypt's foreign ministry said Cairo commended the efforts of the U.S. administration led by President Donald Trump in combating international terrorism. The move fully aligns with Egypt's firm position towards the Muslim Brotherhood, it said. It said the U.S. decision confirms the validity of Egypt's resolute stance since the July 2013 protest that removed the Brotherhood from power. It cited the group's record of crimes and acts of violence against citizens and security personnel. Jordanian government spokesman Mohammed al-Mamani said the group had been dissolved in the kingdom for years, so they're just invoking a boogeyman, sounds like. He said all its activities have also been banned since April last year, but let's just, make sure that they're really, really banned, and make them an international terrorist designation. The U.S. officials said the designations were aimed at disrupting what they described as a transnational brotherhood network that provides ideological and financial support to Hamas. However, the move also indicates that Washington under President Donald Trump is taking a less neutral stance in one of the region's longest-running ideological struggles, aligning itself more closely with governments hostile to Islamist movements. The UAE welcomed the U.S. designation, saying they reflected Washington's sustained and systematic efforts to counter the activities of terrorist Muslim Brotherhood branches wherever they operate. And I don't think we should repeat too much of this. I forget who I was listening to. They were talking about how, even though we know it's not true, I think it was probably Pro-Pilled. Go check out Pro-Pilled if you've never seen them. They're saying even if it's not true, the way that the propaganda works is if you repeat it often enough, then your brain starts to think of it as true, even though it's not. So we should not. This is why they put the word terrorist next to the words Muslim Brotherhood. So if you repeat it enough, even though you know that it's not true, you'll start to think of them as terrorists anyways. So let me just, it's kind of important to.
So based on what
here,
Sean,
go ahead.
Yeah, based on what Sean was saying, I am subscribed to Pro-Pilled. I never get a notification. I've not had one notification.
Those algorithms really work in like they're advertised, aren't they? because it's supposed to be tracking our information and giving us content based on our choices, right? But it seems to be actively avoiding giving us content based on our choices. Funny how that works. Maybe we should take the opportunity to say like, share, and subscribe.
Oh yeah, shameless plug.
So about this thing about with the Muslim Brotherhood and what's happening in to try and tie it in with Sudan, I got this. Uh,
That's interesting. We can't hear you, by the way, but Sean, I get notifications from Heartland's Media. It's just it's too early in the morning for me. I don't get them from Indy though. Oh, I don't know what happened with Michael. Is he frozen? He looks a bit frozen.
this little scoop, I guess you might call it.
Mike, you're frozen. If you are you, we didn't hear anything. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Well, while we're waiting for him, we could talk about ICE for a second. You know how earlier I was talking about Stephen Miller saying that, make sure you surrender and state and local law enforcement need to stand down and surrender. Well, lately they've been restricting airspace over anywhere where there's an ICE operation. So the FAA is also surrendering. I don't know if anybody has heard about that, but that is very, very interesting. And this comes like, I don't know, like a week after they almost killed that little baby.
Sorry, I don't know when I lost
the tear gas. We haven't heard you for a while. You kind of froze on us.
I didn't realize just talking away, and because I was reading the article thing, and I don't know when you guys lost me, but that was fun. Yeah, thanks. Welcome back. Yay. So do you remember when I dropped out? Was I talking or were you talking?
Or? You were trying to pull up the thing that you were going to share. You were talking while you were doing it, but we didn't hear any of it. So you could try again. But I was just telling them I was just going back to the ICE stuff that we were talking about, because one thing I missed out of that was that the FAA they're standing down and surrendering too, because they have been quietly making no-fly zones over ICE bases and ICE operations. To protect them from, I don't know, maybe drones. But what's a little baby drone gonna do? I don't know. I've never had a drone, so maybe they could do a lot more than I think. Sean, Microsoft got him.
Damn, this lag is real bad. And I spent.
That might mean we need to just revisit, come back to it, maybe make this more of a series, a part series or something.
Yeah, I'm a little too frozen.
So let's just go ahead and wrap it, and we could do this again, maybe. But before I go, I'm very curious to know what you guys thought about President Trump's Davos speech. How unhinged it was. Like, if we could pull the plug on Biden, I think it's definitely time to pull a plug on Trump, because what is he talking about? And his January 20th speech, his year in office speech, that was thoroughly unhinged. I couldn't sit through it. I could not sit through it. Add to stage. It's asking me to add you to stage. That's odd.
We're glitching a little too bad. So
Davos, President
it's
Trump's
frustrating.
Davos speech. Go ahead.
I said I may have lots of tabs open, but I thought it shouldn't matter. They go to sleep and stuff. Should only be certain tabs that are active. So I don't know why, as far as Sean's saying, I must have been onto something. Only reason why they throttle, because otherwise it's just me not knowing how to deal with glitches, like not knowing how to use my own computer or whatever. But because it's a little too easy for us to claim that we're being throttled every time we have a tech issue. However, they have a nice plausible deniability with that fucking shit. It's very frustrating. So I was just trying to share about the U.S. has designated the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist, right? And now the Muslim Brotherhood.
We don't see it. We don't see it. You want to send it to me?
Right. I haven't shared it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll play this.
I think I should just share you links, and then I wasn't sharing that. I wasn't really. Right.
Well, while you're sending them to me, I'll play this. I thought this was quite interesting.
You're going to give guidance at some point to see what is a.
Oh, by the way, this is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and he's at Davos, the World Forum.
You're going to give guidance at some point to see what is a mom and pop that someone, maybe your parents for their retirement, about 5, 10, 12 homes. So we don't want to push the mom and pops out. We just want to push everyone else out. You're going to give guidance at.
So a mom and pop business owner is someone who has accumulated 5, 10 to 15 homes. We don't want to push them out, just everybody else. That's what he just said. That's a mom and pop. Which one do you want me to play first?
They're just articles. They're not videos. So just go in top to bottom, I guess.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know. Anybody in the chat, parents have accumulated 5, 10, 15 homes, even from being a business owner. Because that's an excess right there. I was trying to see from the comments, but what kind of mom and pop is that? Oh, sorry. He said, what the fuck? What kind of mom and pop store is that? How much more out of touch with reality and the common person? Sean says, He only knows, no, I don't know one person that owns more than 2 homes. Lynn says he looked better in a monocle, in a top hat. Or maybe one of those furries they were wearing at Mar-a-Lago. All right, so here is the article from Arabic. Street visit by al-Burhan to Turkey raises suspicions about the return of the Muslim Brotherhood to Sudanese politics. This was published April 11, 2025. Is it big enough?
Maybe a little bit bigger.
There we go.
Thanks.
You want to read it?
Yeah, I was just looking to put all the different links in the chat here. Why don't you go ahead and read it for now? I think I just got one more to find.
Attempts to reintroduce the Muslim Brotherhood through Ankara, investment promises in exchange for Turkish support, a suspicious deal in the making. The gold alliance between Sudan and Turkey, political and economic exchange. Al-Burhan meets leaders in Turkey. Are the Muslim Brotherhood is the Muslim Brotherhood returning to the forefront in Sudan? So in a move that has raised many questions, informed sources revealed that al-Burhan, chairman of Sudan's Transitional Sovereignty Council, conducted a secret visit to Turkey on March 30th, 2025, where he joined his family. Oh, I guess I can show my face. Where he joined his family in celebrating Eid. Although the visit was officially described as personal and family-related, behind the scenes, developments suggest deeper political motives. Al-Burhan reportedly met with key figures from the former Sudanese regime currently residing in Turkey, including prominent members of the Muslim Brotherhood. This visit precedes his expected participation in the International Economic Conference, set to take place in Antalya on April 15, 2025, giving it additional political weight, particularly in light of increasing regional and international engagement concerning the Sudanese crisis. So here's some bullet points. We talked about that, the secret visit.
Those are links to new other articles.
Visit. Right. Meetings with former. Are you done? Because you can start reading while I pull up some of these.
I can read the art now. Yeah.
So I could pull up this other stuff.
So that's plenty of links now, I think, to establish the path I'd like to go on for sharing sources. So sources familiar with the Sudanese file revealed that al-Burhan used his time in Turkey to hold closed-door meetings with former regime leaders who fled after the fall of Omar al-Bashir in 2019. These meetings focused on reorganizing the political Islamist faction, specifically the Muslim Brotherhood, in preparation for their return to Sudan and participation in any upcoming political settlement. Sources indicated that al-Burhan aims to build a strategic relationship with these figures to secure political and popular backing, which he currently lacks within Sudan, especially amid his declining popularity and eroding military support from certain units. He also seeks to restore a power balance in light of the growing influence of the rapid support forces on the ground. So it seems like the UAE strategy. You remember the guy, the video at the very beginning, the weeb front dude, was saying how like the UAE might be actually being held accountable for their atrocities in Sudan? Well, the plan is to evade accountability by pinning like the blame on the Muslim Brotherhood, or like by calling them a terrorist organization, and then insinuating that they're propping up the al-Burhan regime dictator because they were supposed to do a transition to democratic power. This al-Burhan guy was supposed to give up power, but then there was a civil war broke out between him and the RSF, and so now we have to try and determine who's the legitimate, who should be legitimately recognized by the international law kind of thing. So we have to recognize what UAE's role has been in kind of like they are, I think, more culpable for creating the conflict to begin with for no real reasons other than their own selfish geostrategic whatever gains. So I think we need to, especially recognizing what's happened in Iran, where the U.S. and Israel is like admittedly inciting color revolution against them, and they've admitted that they had Mossad agents there and everything. We have to recognize maybe the Muslim Brotherhood is not so much a terrorist organization as it is a rational response to the terrorism of Zionism. Okay. So I think we need to scroll down a little bit here. Or did we already do that?
No, we hadn't done this.
Diplomatic
We'll stop
reports.
right
Yeah,
here.
investment promises in exchange for Turkish support.
Yep.
Okay, good. So investment promises in exchange for Turkish support. Diplomatic reports revealed that Al Burhan proposed joint investment projects in agriculture, infrastructure, and in energy to the Turkish government in exchange for facilitating the activities of Brotherhood members residing in Turkey and securing their open support for a new political roadmap under development, one that would reintegrate them into Sudan's state structures. This move is seen as a transparent attempt to buy political influence through economic incentives, contradicting official claims that Sudan is on a path toward a transparent democratic transition. Al Burhan appears to be redrawing Sudan's political map through Turkey, using his military authority as a shield to enforce a new reality that may bring the country back under authoritarian rule. So what I'm noticing in my research here, though, is that the UAE is meddling in the internal politics of other nations, where any nation, any government that puts Muslim Brotherhood candidates into positions in the government, the UAE starts to oppose those appointments and seeks to have them taken out of power. So whether the Muslim Brotherhood is just a legal political organization that's trying to advance electoral victory, reformism over revolution, they're being targeted, no matter how closer to the right they are, as opposed to radical far leftist, So, did I read that part at the top? I think so.
Analysts warn that this direction
analysts
poses.
warn that this direction. You go ahead.
I just didn't know if you would. Yeah, go ahead. Analysts warn that this direction poses a serious threat to peace and stability, given the widespread public rejection of the Muslim Brotherhood due to their historical record of repression, exclusion, and the dismantling of state institutions.
Accuse them of that which you are guilty.
So. Every accusation is a confession these days.
Warnings of a potential political setback. Al Burhan's maneuvers open the door to a potential political setback in Sudan, especially amid ongoing field escalations, the war between the army and the rapid support forces, and the worsening humanitarian and economic conditions across the country. Any attempt to restore former regime symbols through external deals will likely face strong resistance from revolutionary forces and civil society, potentially reigniting nationwide unrest. So they're trying to kind of accuse. I've seen there's like a bit of a narrative about they're trying to create endless conflict by propping up the Sudanese government, rather than isn't the U.S. and Israel and the UAE trying to create endless conflict and balkanization by supporting the RSF after they've already. Oh, we're glitching out again. This is where I'm not sure if I should read too much because I'm the one dropping out.
Okay, Al Burhan's maneuvers open the door to a potential political setback in Sudan, especially amid ongoing field escalations, the war between the army and the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, and the worsening humanitarian and economic conditions across the country. Any attempt to restore former regime symbols through external deals will likely face strong resistance from revolutionary forces and civil society, potentially reigniting nationwide unrest. Observers believe that al-Burhan's visit to Turkey is not merely personal, but rather part of a broader project aimed at re-engineering political power in Sudan, ensuring his continued hold on power by aligning with a group historically associated with failure, corruption, and authoritarianism. Let's see. That's it for that one. Interesting.
Yeah, that's maybe enough from that one, because
So it's like under every
the more that we
opportunity.
read it, the more that it appears to be anti-Sudan propaganda. They're trying to paint the al-Burhan's efforts to solicit some assistance from Turkey as some kind of a thing that will make things worse for Sudan, when that's probably what they have to do in order to win the conflict. They need like arms and material support from someone. Like they were losing against the RSF, so they need help from their allies to help kind of cut off and isolate their enemies. So that's where the shift with Egypt is really important, because they've been getting the RSF has been getting supplies from General Haftar in Libya, apparently, allegedly. And what's changed is the Egypt was letting that happen, and apparently they've like started bombing these weapon shipments going through this border nexus of Egypt, Libya, and Sudan. And so they're helping the Sudanese government, whereas before they were like maybe neutral, right? Or tacitly helping the UAE. And so they're switching sides. So we need to understand why. So this is where if the support from the Muslim Brotherhood is important and really happening or whatever, then because like we have to recognize Turkey's also helping out in Somalia too. Like they're training Somalian troops and everything. So if Turkey is the counterweight that is necessary to stop the UAE from achieving neo-colonialism, there's a kind of so be it sort of thing that needs to happen. The same way that Russia may not be the best actor, but there's a lot of nations that have felt it needed to appeal for their support, like the Sahel states. They'll get some support from this Russian Wagner, whatever mercenaries, because maybe it's necessary as a counterweight against U.S. or French colonialism, right? It's how the game is played, I guess. So we want to read this one here.
Sure. Okay. You want me? Okay. Istanbul meeting of the Muslim Brotherhood. This was it has to be in 2026, huh?
This is very recently,
January
like
5th,
January 5th. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
because Turkey's been supporting the Muslim Brotherhood for decades, but then there's been some conflict. There's like the main branch of the Muslim Brotherhood is based in Turkey, but there's like two branches maybe vying for power. There's one other branch in the UK, and the UAE, interestingly, has had some falling out with the UK because they're worried about the students that the UAE sends to the UK are going to be brainwashed by the Muslim Brotherhood in the universities. So it's the same thing about the Zionists clutching their pearls about you can't let those Palestinian activists de-radicalize my Zionist children or whatever. You can't let them teach them anti-Zionism. You know, you like as shitty as the English, whatever, the UK, like the British monarchy is not really a supporter of the Palestinian cause, but the UAE is still critical of the British government for not being Zionist enough, right? Or for not being against the Muslim Brotherhood enough. Actually, that's one thing that's probably an important detail I need to remember to point out. The U.S. has designated the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. I think the UK's response has been to not do the same thing so far, demonstrating that the old alliance, the Atlantic Alliance or whatever, may actually be crumbling, whereas we're thinking that they're just sort of behind the scenes, they're working together, and it's all a ruse about them actually splitting, about Canada and the UK and Europe actually splitting from American hegemony. But it may be the historical moment where it's finally happening. But we'll see. If there's little signs that we can point at, like if the UK also eventually decides the Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization, it's because they're doing the UAE's bidding and the US's bidding, right?
I bet
And
they're just trying to sit this out because they know this is Trump's last term. So they're trying to
But it's
sit it out
leverage.
and see.
It's leverage they have. It's something that with the multipolar, whatever de-dollarization thing, as long as the US wants to go around pushing the UK, acting like we're a bunch of weak pussies who can't defend anything or whatever, he's inciting us to do this kind of thing where, okay, where we would have been in lockstep with you calling these people terrorists, now we're going to find it politically advantageous to not do that for a while. Right? I don't think that China should be trusting Canada with this whole, by the way, little off topic, but I really don't think that that China's making the right move in trusting Canada. But from their perspective, it's important to pry Canada away from the US. But I think, like we were talking about with Nigeria, they're like doing a bait and switch. Canada's pretending to be China's friend until they can stand behind them and stab them in the back. But I could be wrong about it.
You want to read this one?
Yeah, sure.
You're not glitching anymore.
Yeah, I think sounds like I'm back for now. So,
Guess who's that?
Looks like bacon. While major European cities welcomed the new year with strict security measures fearing terrorist attacks, Istanbul hosted a highly sensitive meeting of leaders and networks linked to the Muslim Brotherhood organization at a delicate regional moment marked by wars, state collapses, and the retreat of traditional political Islam projects. There's something in the Islamic world called Ummah, UMMAH, and it's a thing about like Islamic unity in the Islamic world. And it's really something that they failed to achieve because the divide between Saudi Arabia and Iran, right? So I think what we are seeing is a potential rare moment where the Ummah thing, it could be more than just propaganda. They could actually achieve some kind of pan-Arab Islamic unity if they treat UAE and Israel, if they form an axis of alliance against UAE and Israel and the US in the name of this Ummah, right? If it's Saudi Arabia, like they've been with BRICS or whatever, is literally ready to end this Cold War they've had with Iran and to have this moment of this Ummah, then this would be significant, whatever, for the Middle East. That's what I think they're trying to achieve, but it's hard because they have all different opinions about what Islam should be about, kind of thing, about how a hard line to be or whatever, how democratic to be, how secularist to so if they can achieve the solidarity, whatever, we can see like historic changes in the Middle East, the US and Israel, them being kicked out and shit, whatever. But I think that Ummah is what it comes down to. But I don't know. I'm not a big scholar on Islam.
Aren't they supposed to? They're supposed to unite over common beliefs, but and they have common beliefs. It's just some are way more extreme than others. And when you are extreme, just because you have these common beliefs, you still feel like you should go, a step further. So
well, the
I don't
US
think that'll ever be achieved.
The U.S. is exploiting the Sunni Shia divide very effectively, has been for decades. So that's what prevents that prophesied like unification of the Muslim world, right? Because they have different views about like just same thing with Christians, right? They have different interpretations of prophecy and sort of thing, and who's the direct, like the annoying thing about the Islamic world is like that it really matters too much, or it used to anyway. Maybe they've gotten over it a bit. About who's directly blood related to the Prophet Muhammad, just like people like to care about who's directly blood related to Jesus Christ. At the end of the day, it's thousands of years later. It's really counterproductive for anyone to act like that matters. But we're getting way off on a different tangent. This is not maybe the subject of discussion today. So
You don't like talking about religion, boy. Okay, so here we go. All right, here we go.
So according to information from specialized circles, the meeting was attended by representatives of branches and networks of the Muslim Brotherhood from Qatar, Egypt, Yemen, Sudan, Lebanon, Jordan, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Iraq, the United Arab Emirates, and Somalia, as well as organizational structures based in Europe, including what is known as the International Organization Office in London. But it's just funny when you talk about how many of those countries have been bombed by Israel in the last, 3 months or 6 months or whatever. Qatar, Yemen, Lebanon, Tunisia. I don't know if they bombed Iraq. I bet you they have. But yeah, like half the people on that list have been bombed by Israel in the last little while. Jordan, I don't know, but
even if it was by way of another
UAE's
country.
on that list. Anyway, I'm getting distracted.
Black Lives
These
Matter
organizations
cook.
They're trying to find unity. Okay, cool. But now it's hard for you to do that if you got to control the article.
No. All right. The importance of the meeting lies.
So let's try not to spend too much time on this one so we can move on to the next one there.
Okay, I'll just read this part. The importance of the meeting lies not only in the breadth of geographical representation, but also in its political timing, which raises serious questions about whether the organization is attempting to relaunch itself regionally through conflict scenarios rather than through political channels that have failed or been closed out. So it just reminds me of through every conflict is an opportunity, is how they think. Instead of the other way around, like, why can't you build opportunity without conflict? Like, why is the conflict necessary? Oh, because you're trying to do nefarious behavior and you need the conflict in order to distract people so you can do that. If people aren't in chaos, then they can ask more questions.
I think this is
they
the
have a better
playbook
mindset.
The Americans run. It's this neo-colonial playbook they have where they close the political channels available to you, and then force you. The only option you have is through a violent confrontation, and then they label you a terrorist, and then they get to call themselves the good guys, and then force you back to a diplomatic channel after they've beaten you on the battlefield, where you no longer have the clout for the politics or whatever, the electoral politics.
Tosh,
we're really glitchy today.
Yeah. We have 7 more articles.
Oh, I know. And I got way more than that, but then I think we're just going to have to call it a day, and I'll have to try and bring some more to you guys next time, because I want to be able to be faster, more rapid fire about this stuff, but with the lags making it so that we spend 4 minutes on everything I'm trying to do in 1 minute, and it just makes it, we can't do this kind of presentation until I need to start writing Substack articles.
I also don't think the
all you guys this effort of this seeing the background work.
I think this subject, this specifically,
go ahead,
is so complex that a rapid fire wouldn't do it justice anyway. It's a lot to unpack and hold in your brain, and hopefully from the things that we've discussed in the past, this is a continuation and people are able to build on that information. At least that's what I hope. Because this is way too complex to just rapid fire.
Yeah.
And it's continuously changing.
It's hard for me to hard for me to respond to some of what your commentary is because you're cutting in and out, so I'm missing some of what you're saying. So rather than try and waste time having you repeat what you said, let's just kind of move on, and because we're just not going to be able to have a good back and forth if I can't hear you very well.
Okay. Well, I have something to go off on. It's just 10 seconds long, and it's just a reminder to everyone at home that independent media is really important because everybody is pulling their own information from various sources and deciding for themselves what they want to talk about. Well, at least most of us. I could argue that that's not true amongst all of us, but
too much of an automatic feed where we're just kind of clicking on what comes up. We're not so much doing much research, but room to grow.
I try to. I like videos more because I know you like articles, so I try to do the videos more. So we have a nice mix for the people that are watching, because some people are like audio and some people like visual. But I do try to confirm stuff that I'm getting from these visual videos.
Yeah.
So
that's just more like offline work that you're doing when you're doing the confirming. I do also watch offline. I watch a lot of video content too, right? That's more, I watch it on the TV, and then I come to do for the show preparation. I do a bunch of research.
The articles, yeah.
Based on, I get ideas from the TV. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, I'm gonna end on that because I think it's just a good way to remind people to keep watching independent media, keep supporting us as much as you can, because I think that's the only way we're really going to stay as informed as we need to be. So when it's coming, when the time comes, we need to be prepared. And boy, is it coming. It's the age of Aquarius, by the way. So that's supposed to be the age of truth and reconciliation. So let's not lose hope.
Because you're saying it's coming, right? And the reason why I'm reporting on this is because I'm pretty sure the most Western media commentators are going to miss this because they're a little too busy talking about Trump, or maybe they're rightly concerned and focused on Venezuela and stuff. But I feel like a lot of these stories that happen like to Asia or to West Asia, we just don't talk about in the West. And if the people hear about it, it comes from the mainstream media, the corporate news, which does not tell you anywhere near the truth. They try and completely turn the truth inside out.
Inside out.
And then you think you're hearing something
down.
about what's happening in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So just so you know, I don't know if you're looking at the comments, that's very kind of Sean. He said, if you need a proofreader for your Substack articles, you can send them to him on Discord.
I might just start, what I've been doing is trying to wait after the show, and then I'll disclose the sources in the Discord for anyone who wants to do follow-up. But I think I need to start using the Discord to save my links and close them. So I'm going to start information dumping. You get a little preview of what I'll talk about on the show, maybe on Discord, and that'll give people more of a reason to be interested in it rather than, okay, I just listen to him talk about it for a few hours and then you think I'm going to read something about it. So.
That's true. All right, so we will stay on this kind of thread.
You're gonna play something?
I am, but I just wanted to close it out saying that we're gonna stay on this kind of topic for next Thursday. I'll probably throw in a couple of domestic things just so we still aren't losing sight of what's going on in this area. But Tuesday.
Yeah. I just want to try and
Tuesday
and
come talk to us.
I don't know, trying to get people to understand that what's happening in Pakistan and Afghanistan is literally kind of a part, it can be connected to what's happening in Somalia and Sudan now, because they're like they're signing military alliances. So they're now I'm looking for my sources again, but
I have it.
Pakistan is apparently like this is what I need to figure out.
I have
Is
it.
this
I'm about to
misinformation?
share it for you.
Because I'm seeing Pakistan. It says that Pakistan is reportedly finalizing an arms deal with Pakistan, or Sudan is reportedly finalizing an arms deal for crucial air reinforcements against the RSF. But then there's also another article that's saying that they're supplying. I think that they're supplying both
The
sides.
arms
Maybe
deal
it
to
sounds
sell
like.
China warplanes.
To sell Haftar, the Libyan guy, Chinese airplanes. Yeah, the $4 billion Pakistan deal. That one right there. To Haftar, who is supplying the RSF. So what's happening here? I just want to make sure before we sign off that we point that out. Because there's all
and we'll read that
show
next.
That headline.
We'll read
now
that
you can
next
show
week.
the critical threats. Yeah, because the criticalthreats.org, if you got the next link, whatever, Somalia cancels UAE agreements, Sudan, Pakistan arms deal. So there's something happening there about either misinformation or like happens so many times. People are foolish enough to let Israel supply weapons to both sides. And so maybe they're foolish enough to let the UAE supply weapons to both sides, and Pakistan to both sides, and US to both sides. And I guess it doesn't really matter if everyone's supplying weapons to both sides, nobody is, right? No, actually, that doesn't work that way. If everyone's supplying weapons to both sides, everyone's getting weapons from both sides. And it's just like a crazy powder keg ready to blow up. So, anyway.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting because I don't know of any country in Africa that actually manufactures its own weapons. They're all coming from outside of the continent.
And since we're on the topic of weapons, actually, when we're trying to go after the UAE for supplying weapons to support a genocide in Sudan, ask yourself the question, where does UAE get their weapons? When I looked it up, it says 64% of their weapons they buy from America. And then I found an article, there's some Democratic senators, I guess, whatever, congressmen, trying to lobby for arms embargo of American, like stop selling American weapons to the UAE. So if you guys are in whatever district, if you guys are fucking liberals, support your Democrats trying to ban weapon sales to the UAE for whatever it's worth.
No.
Even though I don't support Democrats or whatever, from a pragmatic point of view, if you guys accomplish those objectives, that would benefit the working classes of the world if these kinds of things could be achieved. Or at least it would be a deterrent that would be gradually maybe leading to peace, because you actually are starving the instigators of the means they need to perpetuate the conflict. But I know
let's not forget
open Congress. Sorry.
Let's not forget Congress just passed. Only like 57 Democrats voted no, but they just passed a bill to send $3.3 billion to Israel for military assistance, and I think it was like 50 million or something like that to Venezuela. So they're totally on board with this capture of the Venezuela, of Maduro. They're totally on board with it. Code Pink has been doing some really good work in the halls of Congress.
Video from Carl Zaw about why China doesn't have to save the Venezuela and why it shouldn't, kind of thing. That's the title of his video. So giving a little bit of a side eye to Carl Zaw on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Well, we could talk about it all night. So I'm going to play this on our way out the door. Hopefully if you guys are free on Tuesday, come hang out with us, because that's when we're going to do our bullshitting. And if you have something you want to discuss, some article or some video or something, feel free to bring it with you, and we can discuss it for sure.
And please come on and give us someone to talk to, so that maybe I can spend less time talking, give Abby more of a chance to talk with you guys, and I can rest my voice a bit.
All right, you guys. I'm gonna let you do the overlay once I'm done. All right, Mom. Be safe. Mom. She can't hear it for shit. It's 7:37.
You have to go take care of her.
Yeah.
Sounds about time for us to be signing off anyway.
She was supposed to be there at 7. She's just leaving at 7:30. Oh, she does this every time. Nobody's gonna be there. Okay, let me grab her. So after it's just 10 seconds, so she never leaves right on time. It takes her forever. So I'll play this and you can do the overlay, and that's all, folks.
Yeah. So
see you on Tuesday, hopefully.
I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Yeah.
Be vigilant.
If we
fortunately, some members of the media
Some members of the media
use their platforms to push their own personal bias, and agenda to control exactly what people think. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. Unfortunately, some members of the